Zaldrizes Buzdaris goes down.
Okay, so Corlys's Hall of Nine is very much a brag, right? So we see all of these amazing artifacts in House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 5, right? And we don't get to spend that much time there, but what we do see on the TV show is exciting. Then if you watch the behind-the-scenes thing, basically inside the episode when they focus on Corlys and his Hall of Nine, right? So he went on 9 voyages that, for the most part, we kind of know what happens on some of them. Like, for instance, on the 9th voyage, he went and bought a bunch of ships, and this is the one where he doubled the wealth of House Velaryon and became the richest man in Westeros, right? But for instance, there's an image of a skull with these carvings on it, and one of the figurines on the carving of the skull, and I'm showing you that image right now, actually looks like a Mayan, right? The Aztecs and the Mayans down in Central and South America. It looks very similar to that. So basically what they did for Corlys's Hall of Nine is go to the Museum of London, right? And then just sort of take different images of certain artifacts and then transform them into Corlys's Hall of Nine, right? So the actor Steve Toussaint, who plays Corlys, was given a bit of a backstory for his character, right? So he knows a little bit about each one of these voyages, and for right now, that has not been revealed to the public. That's going to be on the Sea Snake spinoff show. That's why I think when House of the Dragon gets to the point where High Tide is ransacked and all of those items are destroyed, around that time is when we'll probably... at least if the Corlys show is greenlit, we'll probably be figuring out more about these things through Corlys's journey, and he's going to be recast by a different actor to play the younger version of Corlys the Sea Snake. But here's something you may not know. Corlys the Sea Snake in the books, Corlys Velaryon, right, is actually named after the first Kingsguard member, Corlys Velaryon. He was not the first Kingsguard member, he was the first Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, which is pretty exciting. So it shows you how close Velaryon and House Targaryen, how their ties go back. So obviously, Damon Velaryon is related to Aegon, but for the most part, the TV show is kind of doing something different, right? So Corlys mentions like the 2 great Valyrian houses, and basically kind of insinuating that aside from his wife Rhaenys and himself being a Velaryon, they hadn't really united their houses that much, and that's something that sort of strays away from canon a little bit, but it's making it more exciting for this TV show. So one of the other things I saw was this big seashell thing that looked amazing. I don't really know what the heck this is. This is probably from one of his journeys over in Essos, and when you combine it with all of the other buried and sunken treasure, it's probably something that will have quite a bit of significance, right? Because remember, the whole Hall of Nine, the whole idea of it is Corlys showing off, look at all these badass toys I got from all of my badass journeys. I might be an old man now, but it very much reminds me of Victarion from the Song of Ice and Fire books. Victarion was cut completely from the TV show, but basically when he's going on this crazy journey and after the King's Moot, he's been sent to bring back Daenerys as a bride for Euron, right? So Euron gives him Dragonbinder and a bunch of ships, and he goes and sails over to Essos to Slaver's Bay to go and sort of rescue Dany from the situation she's in because she supposedly hasn't left yet. So on his journey there, Victarion is basically a pirate. So he's living the pirate life, right? He's he's rampaging and destroying any vessel that he comes upon. For the most part, if it's not destroyed in the initial onslaught that he does with his Reavers, he takes control of that vessel, puts his men on it, and adds it to his fleet. So his fleet is growing ever larger, ever bigger. He's discovering all these different rumors and stuff going on in Slaver's Bay, but ultimately he picks up this dude named Moqorro, right? Moqorro is this fire priest who is actually on his way to go and treat with Daenerys, and Moqorro basically heals his hand. Victarion's hand is gravely, well, it will be death, right? It's festering. It's gravely wounded in a fight that he has at the beginning of his POV chapters. He basically just gets cut in the hand, and that wound festers until it basically won't heal. The cut won't close, and then when he rescues this dude Moqorro, who is basically adrift out at the ocean, who's just kind of been through a shipwreck, and he survived an insane amount of days out at sea. He should have been dead, right? But Victarion brings Moqorro on the ship, and obviously they're very suspicious of him. They, believe in the drowned god, and Moqorro is a fire priest, and, he believes in R'hllor, right? So they're very weary of him, very superstitious, but ultimately when he heals Victarion's hand is as strong as it's ever been. Victarion's able to lift a man up off the ground with his newly healed hand, and it's like basically like a small smoking, soldering piece of ham, right? So occasionally the flesh on his hand would break open and disappear like pork crackling, right? But it was still really strong, and that's all besides the point, because I wanted to say how Corlys's Hall of Nine is something like Victarion, right? So I gave you a little bit of a backstory on Victarion, but Victarion thinks in his POV in A Feast for Crows about how when he finishes his journey, he's going to take the banners, and he's already started doing it. He started taking the banners of every person that he's conquered and defeated, and he's going to add them to his Great Hall. When he's an old man and he's telling stories to his grandkids, he's going to point to each one of those flags and banners that he took and be like, hey, this is where I was when I was doing that. So that's what the Corlys Hall of Nine reminds me of. And I just wanted to say that because it's kind of like a big reference from, or a big connection from the main A Song of Ice and Fire series. And I'm talking about those in every single video because I've already started a podcast where I'm going to break down, the topics are going to vary every episode, right? But I'm going to break down every single POV chapter, right? I'm going to have guests on, and that's all going to be available on my Patreon, in depth. On my Patreon. It's linked down below in the description. It costs only $1 to join, but the full versions of those podcasts will be up on my Patreon. Right now I'm starting to upload. I've already uploaded one full podcast episode up there. But like I said, once I get guests and once this season ends, when House of the Dragon season 1 ends, I'll be able to put full-on focus into it. Like I've reread the books 6 times. I'm on my 7th reread, but that's still not enough to make my podcast as in-depth as I want to. So enough of the self-promotion. We're a good chunk into this video. Please do me a massive favor and slap a like on it. Like goal is going to be 420. And then also make sure you turn on your notifications, lot 2 and 11, so that way you'll get notified every single time I drop a video throughout the wait for House of the Dragon, the next episode, Winds of Winter, right, the next Song of Ice and Fire book, and then also eventually season 2 of House of the Dragon, and then Corlys the Sea Snake, the Jon Snow show, the Daenerys show, anything they come up with. The wait for all of that stuff is known here on this channel, and it's kind of my saying, along as a video right, is the long night. So subscribe and turn your notifications on and slap a like on this video. So that would be the like and the comment and subscribing and stuff. Well, the subscribing helps you out, but all that other stuff helps me beat the shit out of YouTube for shadow banning my channel. Basically, you'll notice when I upload a video, it's never in YouTube's ranking system. Even when you type in House of the Dragon, it rarely shows up, right? They've sort of promoted, certain types of content above others. So if you enjoy my content, I'm asking you to do those things. Make sure you leave a comment down below, subscribe, turn notifications on, and slap a like on this video. Basically, it tells YouTube, hey, we actually do want this guy's stuff. Please help him out and, reaching a wider audience. Okay, so the next little bullet point that I want to talk about for this video is Damon, Rhaenyra, or Harwin and Laenor, right? So we got all these images, all these new images of episode 6 promos, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second, but I mainly want to talk about this dynamic, right? So Laenor is gay. Laenor, at this point in the story, is probably already with the lover that kills him in a duel, according to canon, and that's Khal Khori. Khal Khori is known to have a rich man's taste, but to be very poor. So, in this next episode, and I'll try to put the images up right here, I believe Damon is directly involved with the death of Laenor. That's something that was, theorized in the books itself. It's sort of mentioned. Mushroom's version says Damon hired someone, and that's Khal Khori, to kill Laenor, and then Damon slit Khal Khori's throat, supposedly when Khal Khori got away and had a ship waiting for him, right? So that's going to be changed for the TV show. It looks like Damon is choking out someone who is involved in the fight between Khal Khori and Laenor. Now, apparently Laenor gets a new favorite, and this is what makes Khal Khori jealous. Damon capitalizes on this, and this is all happening at high tide at Laena's funeral. That's the only reason why Damon would be there, right? So Damon just watched his wife. Spoiler alert, I just mentioned a bunch of spoilers, so I guess I'll give another spoiler for this one because this is something that strays away from what happened in the books and nobody really knows it's coming unless you've heard it online like myself, right? Is Laena, instead of dying on childbirth like she does, she actually overhears the Maesters telling Damon that they could save the child if they do the C-section, reach their hands inside of her and pull the baby out, kind of like what they tried to do with Emma Aaron. Well, they did that with Emma Aaron, but the baby died anyway, right? So Laena supposedly hears that and decides, you know what, I'm going to take my fate into my own hands, and then she gets up and tells Damon and the Maesters that she wants to supposedly just go on a walk to go see Vhagar one last time. She knows she's going to die anyway, and instead of going on that walk and then eventually mounting Vhagar like she does, she collapses on the serpentine steps, and Damon takes her back to the bed where she dies, right? So this is after she gives birth to Damon and her child, right? It's it supposedly happens a similar way to that, but instead of walking out to go fly Vhagar, she walks out to go get burned, and she actually has to say Dracarys about 5 times to get Vhagar to do it, because Vhagar is hesitant at first. But then supposedly, we got those images of Damon reacting, and I'm showing you that right now. This is supposedly Damon watching Laena get burned. But all of that aside, Damon is going to be emotionally, physically, everything about him will just be screaming hurt. So what does someone do to get over someone? Is to get under another person. So he's going to do whatever he can in this episode to make sure that Laena is completely taken out, right? Or just put the plans into motion so that he could eventually, and this will probably actually happen in episode 7, but so that he could eventually remove Laenor and then put himself in that place and marry Rhaenyra. And remember, we saw him and Rhaenyra getting married in the typical Valyrian wedding where they exchange vows in High Valyrian. They cut each other's hand, and then it looks like their hands are then bound in this satin sort of like ribbon kind of thing, and then it also looks like they put the blood in their lips and they kiss each other. It is crazy, right? It's a full-on Valyrian ceremony, so that's kind of going to be really awesome to see, but also kind of like they both just got over their former lovers who they had kids with, right? So it's going to be really crazy to watch. Oh yeah, and also, we saw this during the filming process, but when Damon has Dark Sister thrown into the sand and he collapses at the beach, I could still be wrong. I thought this was from something else. Could maybe be from when he finds out that Viserys is dead, right? But this is probably a scene from after he just watches Laena being burned by Vhagar, and it's too much for him to take, and he's already comforted, his children, and he's finally by himself, and it's just heart-wrenching to watch him do this. Like, he's been through a bunch at the point in this story, so it's going to be crazy to watch. I think that's what this leaked scene was during filming, because basically Damon walks out to the ocean and collapses and is distraught, and he stabs Dark Sister into the ground, and he has, like, a moment. If I'm not mistaken, Emma Darcy, they did an interview where they pretty much said, yeah, they read the fan fiction in the stands of the Daemeria, or Daemara, I don't know. It's a silly combo of Damon and Rhaenyra, right? In my opinion, Rhaenyra should be first, so it should be Raymond, right? That should be how the fandom goes, Raymond, right? So Rhaenyra, Daemon, Raymond, right? But anyway, Emma Darcy mentioned that they're big kind of fans of like what happens, and obviously it's very much a grooming thing early on when Rhaenyra is supposed to be 15 and Damon is 31, right? So that's the dynamic in the early episodes, but now, Damon is aged up, and then ultimately so is Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is about to be, 30 or so, like when the dance actually kicks off. So it's kind of more appropriate for them to be together in their eyes, right? Another thing I wanted to talk about is these pictures from House of the Dragon episode 6. I mean, HBO, because they know that we have yet to get, the actual pictures leaked. Or, I'm sorry, the actual episode leak. They're basically just leaking the episode in stills. Like, we've gotten so much promotion for this episode. But it actually makes sense because this is episode 6. This is the first episode where they're switching up and sort of showing, these new characters, these new actors. Not new characters, rather. New actors that are going to be taking over characters that they've already previously established. I'm going to share these with you and break them down now. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you. Probably block my face out here a little bit. So yeah, we'll do that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make that disappear. I'll put these in post so you guys can see them all big and beautiful, right? So just look at my face. All right, so one of them, the ones that I've been seeing a lot of rhetoric about is these two strong lads right here. I actually saw a meme where someone had replaced their arms with big burly, arms that pretty much look like mine, and I thought it was hilarious. I will say, oh yeah, by the way, if you're unaware, the taller lad on the right, that is Jacaerys Velaryon, the Prince of Dragonstone. And then the shorter lad on the left, soon to be short ahead, right? Just kidding, really, really sick joke there, Sir Hunts. That's Lucerys. That is the younger child of Laenor and Rhaenyra. Really, Harwin Strong and Rhaenyra. It's very clear, right? And also the baby that we see Rhaenyra walking to go and show Alicent with Laenor with, that is little baby Joffrey, who's named after the guy who just lost his skull in the last episode, right? It's kind of interesting. 2 Joffreys die at a wedding. Which one do you think is more gut wrenching to watch? Was it Joffrey choking on poison, dying in the arms of his mother, realizing that he still is like a 14-year-old boy and like he may be insanely twisted and basically the ultimate villain for the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, but it's still kind of crazy to watch him choking and dying there. And then we obviously have Joffrey, the Knight of Kisses, right? He got beat to death by Kristen Cole, and he got hate crime to death. So which one do you think is more brutal down below in the comment section? There's another image of Helaena and Alicent, and I actually, in the video that I released last night, I used this image, but I didn't really mention it because that was a clip from my podcast, which is available over on my Patreon. It's 54 minutes. Those audio podcasts are only going to be uploaded there, so they're only available there, right? Link down below in the description. But you'll notice Helaena has some creepy crawlies in her hands, and she's also got a box with what looks like may potentially be a scorpion, and then maybe a piece of a manticore. It could just be one of those shiny beetles. Like I'm a gardener, and I have these this pest problem known as these Japanese beetles, and they keep eating my fucking plants. So I immediately thought, oh, this little girl's a fan of Japanese beetles. No, it's probably a scarab or manticore, which is what we saw attack Daenerys in season 1, but they're giving Helaena some depth because she's obviously not fascinated with bugs in the books, and ultimately it looks as though Alicent is like probably talking to her like, you enjoy these, like she's holding a millipede, right? The big ass nasty worm thing. It probably could be like they will show creatures of Valyria through Helaena, and maybe we'll see some of these crazy looking bugs that are out of frame or whatever that she has collected, because obviously her dad collects toys and Lego sets, so she's going to be a creepy crawly girl too. Like my daughter's probably going to be obsessed with the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones and collect all the statues, and because I do that, right? So she's a hobbyist, very much like her father. But sort of getting back to what I was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some creatures of Valyria. Maybe she has a baby fireworm in a jar. That'd be amazing to see. If they don't do something like that, that is a huge missed opportunity, because Helaena clearly likes the insects. It'll be interesting to see. Alicent's probably like, you have these things, this is your hobby, but ultimately your goal, your job in this world, and that's what was taught to her when Alicent was younger, right, is that you have to produce heirs. And she's like, I don't want to marry Aegon. Aegon's a jerk, right? Supposedly, I've been sent some information through the leaks, through the DMs over on Twitter. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunts. But someone mentioned that supposedly Helaena and Aemon will have like a bit of a crush towards each other, and that will make a bit of a rivalry between Aegon 2 and Aemon. But that's kind of like a backstory set up in this season, and ultimately more further explored in the later seasons down the line. I don't know if that's the case. It'll be interesting to see, because definitely there's something like that in the books, right? So when Aegon is first being searched out to be crowned and usurp Rhaenyra's throne, Helaena is questioned, like, where's the king? Why is he not in your bed? And she goes, I don't know. Certainly he's not in my bed. You can look if you'd like. And then he's found being pleasured in a brothel while watching two people fuck. So that's probably what happens, right? So they have children together when they get older, and she probably doesn't like the fact that he, is living like a typical Targaryen lord, back in that time period. So she probably finds her own things to amuse herself, and it's these critters and these creepy crawlers. Real quick, the last image I want to talk about is this one of Larys the Clubfoot. This dude is up to something, right? So initially, Larys joins the king's confessors when his father Lionel comes to court before Lionel was promoted to hand to the king. We saw Harwin is appointed to the Gold Cloaks. He saw Rhaenyra when she was running through. He's currently a Gold Cloak member. And then we also saw that Lionel is just allows Larys to kind of do whatever. Now in the books, he joins the king's confessors, right? Larys has connections to Old Town and into the Maesters through his father, Lionel. So Lionel went to the Citadel and formed several links of his chain. In the books, he's very burly and brusque and a big dude. And because he's so big, people think he's stupid. He's also quiet, right? So people just assume that he's this dumb guy, right? But that's because he, it doesn't specifically mention that he doesn't talk a lot. Like, he's a quiet individual, which is why people think that he's stupid. But also, his son learns this. So Larys the Clubfoot learns the quiet part from him, because there's specific point in the Green Council where Larys is mentioned to hold his words like a miser hoarding coins. Basically, Larys is silent the entire time until the council ends, and then he comes up with this thing like, everybody who took a part in this council, let's all make a pact, and it's a blood pact, and then everybody who signs that blood pact dies in the Dance with Dragons, and Alicent is excluded on behalf of her womanhood, and she doesn't die. And I've kind of mentioned that in videos before, but like I said, he and the Strongs have connection to the Old Town and the Citadel, so I wanna know you all's thoughts watching this. How big of a twist, or how far will they stray away from canon when it comes to his character? Because it's not necessarily considered straying away from canon if you're adding depth to the character. That's a better way to put it. How much depth do you think is going to be added to Larys the Clubfoot? And do you think that he will die a similar way, in that he's killed by when the old man of the North, when Cregan Stark shows up, he executes him? Do you think Larys is going to say, "Hey, take off my clubfoot so that way when I die, I can be rid of this thing," right? Let me know down below. All right, now this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to mash these last two things together. So the Jon Snow show is coming out. Okay, it's in the process of being sort of like, under development, right? But the success of House of the Dragon has probably gotten rid of a bunch of the fears they may have had with making something that's associated with Game of Thrones in that universe. They realized that fans are very much still hungry for anything A Song of Ice and Fire if properly done. So they're probably being extra cautious with the Jon Snow show, in that they want to make sure the story is developed. They want to make sure George has his hands all the way inside of it, like the Maesters with Emma Arryn, right? They want to make sure all of their ducks are properly in a row and in the order. And I wouldn't be surprised if they've already started filming. Like, Kit Harington is show running this show. There's rumors that Emilia Clarke wants to also be brought in as a producer, as a showrunner, and right now they're negotiating contracts with money, right? I think Snow will start filming by the end of this year, maybe even next year, and we will probably have 2024 as a year where we get like a Snow show and then House of the Dragon season 2. Like, it's going to take a while to film the Snow show, but nowhere near as long as it would for season 1 of the House of the Dragon. The main reason being is because all of the sets that Kit is going to be filming in, aside from pickup shots where they send the camera crew and the everybody that works on the show and making it look so good, they'll send them on location to film and then have Kit and all of the actors in the Leavesden studio in the UK, and it'll make it way easier to film. And also, it's indoors, so they'll be able to lock down the footage and keep it secret, right? They can definitely film House of the Dragon and the Jon Snow show in tandem. How excited are you for it? Like, I saw a bunch of people when the news came out, like myself included, I just about died with excitement, because that's the one thing that, regardless of whether you agreed with the writing choices or whether you hated or liked season 8, everyone thought that it should have been longer. George R. Martin himself wanted 13 seasons. HBO wanted 10 seasons. Everybody and their fucking mama wanted 10 episode seasons. Like, we knew we weren't going to get a 9th season, but at least give us 10 episodes season 7 and season 8, and that didn't happen. We got 7 episodes in season 7 and 6 and episode 8, right? So we need more to tell this story. Like, cutting out all the characters and all that stuff doesn't change the fact that we need more from these characters to complete their journey, and we're getting that with the Snow show, so I'm really excited about that. Let me know down below how excited you are about that. And then the last thing I want to mention, and this is kind of like, I would do it myself, but I don't want to seem like I'm using them, I guess. All right, so I have people from the show, right? In specific, a director, right? Claire Kilner. She follows me on Instagram. I often try to share her posts as much as possible so people who follow me can go follow her, because she's responsible for how the show looks and feels and everybody on her team, right? I want to interview Claire Kilner, Greg Yantis, and Gavin Spokes, and also Steve Toussaint, but I feel like it may be really hard to get an interview with him, and also Gavin Spokes too. But I want to interview them for my podcast, like 20 minutes, right? And I haven't messaged them that, and I don't want to do that because like I said, I feel like, I don't know, I just feel some type of way about it, but also I feel like they may think that that's the only reason why I followed them and liked their posts and all that stuff. And that's not the case. I'm a fan of their work. I like the show. I did the same thing that I did with the actors. I waited to follow most of them until the show came out because I wanted to see how good of a job they did, and they've all done amazing. So they deserve support and all that stuff. But that's part of the reason why I didn't want to message Claire and Greg and Gavin Spokes and Steve Toussaint about asking them for an interview, is because I feel like they probably think that I only started following and started interacting with them is to just get that interview. That's not the case. So I'm asking you all watching this to go on Instagram and on social media and message Gavin Spokes. I really want, the one I want to interview the most is Claire Kilner, right? So she's responsible for directing my favorite episode this season, right? So just please go to their social media and leave in their comments and message them and say, hey, you should go on Sir Hunt's podcast. He really wants to interview you, but he's too much of a bitch to ask you himself. So we're doing it for you. Please, will you go on his podcast? Just go do that. I want to interview them. I have so many questions, right? And I'll actually take questions submitted by you all watching this to ask them. Obviously, they're not going to be able to give away spoilers or anything like that. But now that we had several episodes out, I think they will be way more comfortable in doing interviews like these. And obviously, I'm a super fan, so I cannot wait. I hope something like that happens. But anyway, I want to get the hell out of here. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I've been uploading every day this week, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mark. Super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntReviews. And a super special thank you to you for watching. Along that and Zeltris as postare ixas dahor.